Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about Royal Caribbean's The Key program. And this is something that we did utilize and purchase on our last Royal Caribbean cruise just a couple of months ago. And so today we're going to talk about a brief description of what it is. Then we'll dive a little deeper into each of the benefits. We will also talk about why I was interested in purchasing this program and the big question, was it worth it? Before we go any further, just a quick introduction. My name is Jonna, and here at Blue Coach Travel, we talk about ocean cruising and all things Disney. If that's something that you are interested in, and also I do share a lot of tips and tricks of our travels along the way, so make sure if that's something you want to hear more about to hit that bell notification and that subscribe button so that you know when we have new content. Now, The Key is Royal Caribbean's priority program for their guests to utilize while on the ship. And there are certain benefits that you get by purchasing this program. Now, one thing to keep in mind, as I keep saying purchase, it is something that you have to purchase, and it is something that can be sold out. So if it's something you're interested in, it's something you want to look at pretty quickly and kind of make that decision. And as you're making that decision, one of the requirements is that anyone over 6 years old that is in the cabin has to purchase the key as well. So if you have 4 people in your cabin, all 4 people have to purchase the key. Now let's talk about the benefits. The first benefit is priority access at your arrival time. So this is something that I knew was going to be a benefit because we've been on other cruises and on other cruise lines, and we've experienced all kinds of different embarkation days, from waiting for hours to being able to utilize a VIP lounge and everything in between. So I knew that this was going to be a big one and something that we would probably really appreciate, and it definitely was. So when we were dropped off at the port, we had stayed a couple of days in Orlando and spent a day at Disney, and then had taken an Uber to the port. And we got there a little before 10 o'clock, and there were people in a queue waiting in the parking area. It was a covered parking garage area. They were in that area based on the times that they had registered for online before their cruise for their arrival time. And luckily, once we got up to a crew member, we let them know that we had the key, and we walked right by everybody that was in that line, and were able to get right inside the terminal. We went through security. That was very quick. We did our check-in, and then we were waiting to get on the ship. And the only difference was we were able to comfortably sit inside, but there was an area that if we had purchased a suite, or if we were a certain level in the loyalty program, we could have been in an area where they also had refreshments, drinks, snacks, that type of thing. But we really weren't there very long. By the time we got through security and did all of our check-in, it was about 10 after 10, and they started boarding or letting us get onto the ship about 10:30, a little after 10:30. So we really didn't have to wait very long, but if we had been there any sooner, it might have been much nicer to have that nicer VIP area. The next benefit is to have a drop-off for your carry-on bag. When we got to the cruise port, the first people that we saw were our porters that took our big checked luggage. But because we're not going to see that luggage possibly until the evening, you always want to bring a carry-on bag with the essentials that you need, any medication, a change of clothes, anything, toiletries, that type of thing that you'll need just in case you don't get your luggage until later that evening. So we had that carry-on bag, and one of the benefits is instead of lugging around with us throughout that morning until we were able to get into our stateroom, we were able to drop it off. So that is the first thing we did, was go to the main dining room and drop off our carry-on bag. And we got this letter. And this is something that was pretty important because it gave us all of the benefits, kind of laid it out, what to expect. But there was also some pertinent information that we'll kind of talk about in a little bit. So this was very handy to have. We got to drop off our luggage, and then when we got into our stateroom, it was just there waiting for us. The next benefit was one that I was really looking forward to as well, because one thing, this ship is very, very large. So I was a little concerned about the main areas of the ship and how crowded it would be. And one of those main areas, especially on embarkation day, is the buffet. So for Royal Caribbean, their buffet is called the Windjammer, and it is definitely something that is very, very busy. There's a lot of people. Sometimes it's hard to find a table. It's a buffet setting, so you're fighting with other people or waiting in line to be able to get something to eat. So one of the other benefits of the Key is that you get lunch in the main dining room. And it's not just a typical lunch, but you get menu items that are from Chop's Grill. So I was really looking forward to having a nice, relaxing, quiet lunch rather than fighting through a lot of people to be able to have that embarkation lunch. And it was definitely worth going to the main dining room for. It was very delicious, and it was just a wonderful atmosphere. The next benefit is to have fast lane access to some of the onboard activities. So you don't have to wait in the long lines. Again, the ship is very large. That means a lot of people that can be on board. So it's nice to have that kind of scheduled time to not have as many people. It's not one-on-one, but you don't have the long lines that you would have if you were waiting in line for things like the Flow Rider. And that is where that letter came in handy, which I didn't know at first until I had checked with customer service, and they let me know that our time was on the back. So that's something that you can utilize there. Now, I will say the time that we had, the time we had for the Flow Rider was from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. on the day that we were at Nassau. So, if you had something planned that night, might not be an ideal time or day, or just maybe you don't want to be up at 8 o'clock and being on the Flow Riders. So maybe that's a benefit of the Key, maybe it's not, but it is something that is available. The next benefit is priority departure from the ship to the port if it is a tender port. And a tender port just basically means that you get off the big ship, you get on a little ship or a little boat that will take you from the ship to the port. As sometimes, depending on what port it is, the cruise ship isn't able to dock right next to the port to where you can just walk off and walk to that location. And so you have to take a tender ship. And you basically either wait in line or you draw certain names. The process is different every time. But you often have to wait in a line, and with this you don't have to wait in that line. You have that priority debarkation. Now, we didn't use it on this particular cruise because we weren't stopping anywhere that was a tender port. We went to Nassau and then we went to Coco Cay. So it was just walking off the ship and going to the port. So this was a benefit that we did not use. Now the next benefit is definitely the big one, and that is to have access to Vroom for one device per person. So since it was just my husband and I, we both purchased the key because we were both obviously in the same stateroom. So we each had the Vroom for one device. So it's either your phone, or if you bring a tablet or laptop or that type of thing, you could use it on one of those or your phone. This was another thing where instructions of how to get in and everything was on that letter that was given out. So again, very important piece document there. But there was also a kind of help desk where it was actually a person at a desk that would be able to help you if you had any questions, which we did, and they were very helpful and got all of our questions answered. Now, this was the first time that we have ever done the internet on a cruise, and we've been on many, many, many cruises. Back in the day, you had no option to use your phone. We would put it in the safe when we got on the ship and wouldn't take it out until the end of the cruise. So this was something very different. We didn't know what to expect, but it was something that we really, really enjoyed. I mean, we were able to stay connected through that whole time. If we needed to, we could have gotten a little bit of work done. Whatever needed to be done, we could have done it. And just being able to have access to everything that we are used to having was really, really great. We really enjoyed it, and we'll have a hard time not having internet access on future cruises if that's something we decide. The next benefit was having dedicated seating for the main theater, for Aqua 80, and also for Studio B. And this was really, really handy as well, because those venues just got very, very full. And having that designated area meant that, we didn't have to go to the venue super early and so that we could get a seat. We already knew that we were going to have a seat, so we showed up early, but just not 45 minutes or half an hour early, and we didn't have to do any of that. Now, I will say one tip to think about is when we got up to the venues, there was often lines, so make sure you don't just get into a line. Make sure you get all the way up to the front where you can talk to a crew member and let them know that you have the key. Because those people that were waiting in line either might not have had reservations for that, they didn't have the key, so they were just waiting for that opportunity to possibly get into that show. So make sure you go talk to that crew member and they will tell you where you're eligible to go. Now, the last benefit is on the worst day of the cruise, which is debarkation day, but you get to start it off really in a nice way, and that is by having an a la carte breakfast. So we were given a menu that we could order off of, and we were again in the main dining room where it was very quiet instead of going to one of the buffet locations or anywhere else within the ship. It was very, very quiet. There was only, we went pretty early, and I want to say between 6:30 and 7, and there was not many people. There was probably 2 or 3 other couples within the whole restaurant, so very quiet. We got to order what we wanted and had a nice lunch before we started the process of getting off of the ship. So those are the benefits of the key. And the reason that I was really interested in that is because Like I've said in the past, we've been on lots of different cruises on different cruise lines, and but this was our first Royal Caribbean cruise, and it was on a very new ship, and it was on a very large ship. So there were a couple of things that I was worried about. Because it's a new ship, it's going to be very popular, and because it's a large ship, there's going to be there's a capacity to have a lot of people. Now, on another cruise line, we have a loyalty status to where we get some of these benefits just because we've been cruising with that cruise line for so long. So that was another thing of going back to not having some of those benefits. I was really thinking, oh, do I really want to do that? Do I, want to wait to get on the ship? Do I not want to have some of the benefits that are included in here? And I was very worried because of how many people would be on the ship to be fighting for those, those public locations like buffets and things like that. And if we wanted to do any of the onboard activities, did we want to wait in line and that type of thing? So that is why I really looked into it. As far as the value, the only thing that has a price that is included with the benefits that you get is the room access. And depending on how much that costs for your cruise and how much the key costs, that difference, if you're going to purchase the internet anyway, and if it's just if it's not much more to get the key, and some of those benefits are something that are really beneficial to you, then the key could be worth it. Now for us, I am very glad that we did purchase the key. The things that I really enjoyed was the embarkation, because I've been in those situations where embarkation does not go that quickly, and I really didn't want to be standing outside waiting to get into the terminal location or be sitting in the terminal for a long period of time. And also, having that embarkation lunch, the debarkation breakfast, and staying out of the public areas, the buffets that are a lot busier, and it just was a much nicer experience. And so would I do it again? It really just depends on the price. Now the price can vary. We paid about just under $35 per person per day, and that could vary, and it did. The price changed a few times in the process before the cruise happened. So, it's just something that you have to look at those benefits. If it's something you're going to use, then it could be worth it. If it's something that they're not going to use, especially if you're not going to use the internet, maybe it's not worth it for you. If you learned something from today's video, liked what you heard, make sure to hit that like button and don't forget to hit subscribe. Also, make sure to leave a comment below and let me know if you have used the key and if you enjoyed it, if you thought it was beneficial, or if you just thought maybe it was just a waste of money. Put your comments below. Love to hear what you'd have to say and your experiences. So until next time, everybody have a fabulous day. Bye.